I believe that if there is growth in Europe, there will continue to be growth in Italy, even an increase in interest rate. We did some simulation. The end of QE, an increase in interest rate would not be sufficient to cause an increase in the debt to GDP ratios. And crises occur when debt is high and rising. 80% of the cases, that's what happens. Debt must be rising. So for me, the real danger is a recession.
But Italy was supposed to be growing at 1.3% this year. A lot of the analysts are saying it could well be sub 1% now as well. So the concern from, for instance, Citigroup, in the huge piece they put out recently, is the lack of growth, not necessarily loosened public policy.
No, first of all, this year my view is that will be about a bit above 1%, I think. We started, the target was actually 1.5. I think 1.1, 1.2 is still feasible. There is no doubt that growth is also an issue. And also the strategy to reduce the debt to GDP ratio I mentioned earlier, saving the revenue from growth would require some growth. What is needed, and we'll see whether this happens, is a structural reform, as you mentioned, the right structural reform. I will put on the first plate, at the first plate, the fight on bureaucracy, which is still involves huge costs for Italian firms. The speed of justice is too slow. The level of taxation is too high, but then you need to save something on the spending side. Well, that is not sufficient. You need to reduce spending. And there is still room to reduce spending. Some of these things are in the government contract. The fight on bureaucracy in particular, the fight on corruption, the fight on making the civil justice process faster. So it's a matter of implementation.
So what happens in 2019 if the government parties have good European Union elections as well? Does Italy go back to the polls? And what is your base case scenario then?
It's possible. I don't think there is going to be elections in the spring. It's possible that after the European elections, depending on the results, depending, for example, on how well the Lega does, it's possible that in the fall there would be election.
And then just thinking of the policy then, if they've got an endorsed mandate, then they carry out these policies.
Yes.
And then Italy has widened spreads.
They will still have to deal with. I think that the Lega in particular clearly does not want to have a crisis caused by an increase in the spread. I had this feeling when I had for a few days to manage to try to create a technical government. At the end, it was possible to form a political government because a political compromise was found because the Lega in particular did not want to have a crisis. So I think even if they win, there will still be some moderation in what they do. I remain of the view that the main danger for Italy is an external shock.
If you had been able to form a government, would you have been able to enact any of the policies you just mentioned need doing? Or is there just no appetite amongst the wider Italian population for some of those hard decisions?
In those specific circumstances, my government would have been a technical government to take the country to the elections, so that was just a mandate. If the question is, if I were leading a government with a confidence that wins a confidence vote for parliament, then I will put on the top of the agenda the things that I mentioned: fight on corruption, making the civil justice faster, the fight on bureaucracy especially is the most important one. Bureaucracy is the main problem.
And finally, sir, there is a feeling on this side of the Alps that there is a battle for the type of Europe we want going forward, whether it's going to be a Germany, Northern Europe dominated one, or actually it's one that's going to be more cohesive, more deposit guarantees, more financial sector cohesion. Is there a case to answer from other parts of Europe where they have to understand what's going on in this part of the world?
I mean, there is definitely, in my view, the need, everybody says so, to change Europe. But in my view is that we need a stronger Europe for this. I've always been in favor, and perhaps it's not the right time politically, but I've always been in favor of a larger central budget, including to run counter-cyclical policies from the center, not from the periphery. Will it happen? Probably not, but you never know. How things change.
But if we don't get that, and Europe remains at a halfway house, is the project ultimately doomed?
Doomed, I don't know, but there are definitely risks. Because there are still big tensions within Europe. You have a country like Italy, which has still a big problem in terms of public debt. You have a country like Germany, which instead is reducing, in my view, public debt too rapidly. Germany should expand fiscal policy, and this creates tensions. There is no doubt that there are risks.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.